Hi, I'm Diane Hogan, the Shaman Spirit Mentor. As you may know, I am a regression energy healing specialist. When you work with me remotely in the comfort of your own home, you experience being guided back in time to address recurring themes, unwanted behaviors, abuse situations, and challenging relationship issues, which we uncover during fact-finding that are not working for you anymore. I use guided meditation techniques to help you get to the root of these situations, often leading you back into past lives. You can find my services on my website, dianehogan.com. That's Diane, D-I-A-N-E, Hogan, Hogan.com. I'm about to share with you some of my past life experiences, which I've uncovered over the years, while doing deep dive inner healing work on myself. One thing I discovered is that we are all part of a multi-dimensional universe, also known as multiverses. I also discovered some of my own past lives were around the same time frame, overlapping each other, like two or more separate lives were happening at the same time. I couldn't understand how this could be until I found out from one of my Ascended Master teachers, Saint Germain, who is Master of Transformation, that we choose to fracture part of our soul essence to incarnate into other bodies at the same time to experience multi-lives in parallel dimensions, worlds, and universes. For example, I recall being in the Civil War in 1862 and did extensive healing work on that past life over several years at different times. In 2024, during a temporary move to South Carolina, just over the border of Charlotte, North Carolina, I intuitively felt a very serious imprint from the Civil War in that area, which brought up more of my own past life experience as a Union soldier. Saint Germain encouraged me to take time to meditate and see what comes up. I knew I was in the Battle of Gettysburg, but as it turns out, there was much more to that story before that event. During meditation, I recalled being 17 when signing up for the Union Army. I grew up in Pittsburgh, PA. I saw myself as an enlisted man with my buddies being transported by horse and wagon to the front in Charlotte, North Carolina, close to the border of South Carolina. My troop got captured one night by the Confederates while sleeping. 10 of us soldiers became POWs for 8 months with our wrists bound behind our back. I was one of 4 men who survived after the Union Army pushed the front line south. All 4 of us were on the verge of death. We were sent back north to Philadelphia for rehabilitation. After my recovery, I was sent back into battle at Gettysburg, PA, to fight where I lost my left leg. A few years after the Battle of Gettysburg, I died a tragic death from a self-inflicted wound due to the traumas of war, survivor's remorse, and feeling useless having lost my leg. While living in South Carolina in 2024, near the border of North Carolina, at where Charlotte was, this was again part of this traumatic past life that took event in 1862, so I decided to rescript the event. First, I made the POW situation a non-event. What I did was to have my troop wake up and alert each other when we heard the footsteps rustling in the leaves, so we retreated just in time, preventing the prisoner of war situation. I did, however, fight in the Battle of Gettysburg, but I was able to save my leg since the wound was not that serious. I did not commit suicide and went on to live a long and happy life. However, there were there was another lifetime that I discovered in early 2022 when crossing paths with a soulmate that overlapped the Civil War lifetime in 1862. Around the same time frame, I discovered I was a young woman, 19 years old, in the year of 1850 or thereabouts, having married my childhood sweetheart. We were traveling in a wagon train from Virginia, being escorted by the cavalry across the prairies to homestead in the Midwest. Suddenly, a Native American warrior on horseback appeared out of nowhere with a rifle and shot me in the chest. I died in my husband's arms. He was heartbroken, but did continue to move on and create a home for himself and build the community in the Midwest. In 2024, since I was re-scripting many of these tragic life events that I had recalled, I decided to re-script the pioneer lifetime so that the bullet shot by the Native American missed me. There was no injuries, and the Indian got away too. My husband and I went on to live a long, happy life, building our community and our life together. By re-scripting these traumatic past life events with these new scenarios, they also feed into the ancestral lineage as well as the collective consciousness for a more positive outcome. It turns out that the Midwest homesteader lifetime was taking place in a parallel dimension, while the Civil War lifetime that was happening around the same time was in the dimension that we are in now. Sounds confusing, huh? I'll say. I had to meditate on this situation several times to get it straight. I learned about fracturing our soul essence from Ascended Master Saint Germain, so we can multitask for soul growth for our ascension process, which is a decision that we make before we incarnate. Saint Germain explained to me that we are multidimensional beings. Some of the older evolved souls who incarnate can choose to have more than one lifetime happening around the same time to speed up their soul growth lessons and ascension process. For example, I became aware of an aspect of myself who is alive right now in the ancient star system of Sirius, located near the Orion constellation. However, before I was fully aware of this aspect of myself currently living in this higher dimension, something very unusual happened to me one night many, many years ago, probably about 15 years ago. I was in bed trying to fall asleep, but felt very agitated, very anxious. There was something very strange happening. Suddenly, I felt completely turned around, like my head was located where my feet should be, and my feet were located where my head should be. And the next thing I knew, I saw myself in an operating room, lying on an operating table with a dome of very bright white lights over me. There were doctors in the room, but could not see them. However, I could sense their energy and heard them speak. Then I felt myself being probed up my vagina by one of the doctors. I heard him say they need a sample of my DNA for research because I'm an evolved soul. I wasn't scared during this procedure because it felt like something that I actually agreed to do beforehand. Then I saw myself in a recovery room with a cup of water on a small table near my left ear. There was soft elevator music playing in the background. Moments later, I was back in my bed at home. The whole thing lasted for maybe 30 seconds, or at least it felt that way. I learned years later, in the spring of 2022, that I was being pulled together with my other self, who is experiencing a current life in the ancient star civilization of Sirius, for this special experiment involving her DNA and mine. This operation and merging with my other self in Sirius only happened once. By the way, did you know that when you wake up in the morning and you're really tired, it's because you've been astral traveling to other dimensions that you're connected with in your dream state? We create star portals to astral travel when we sleep and dream. You can also astral travel in an awake state when you go into deep meditation. Listening to New Age music and guided meditation can help you do this. There is another significant parallel dimension lifetime I experienced with Jesus surviving the cross. Yes, I did say surviving the cross. In my recall, Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene, his partner, and they had children. From what I experienced, Jesus went through a crucifixion, then was removed from the cross and placed in the cave nearby. Jesus was thought to be dead, but was not. He was taken by family and friends to a safe house where he healed himself in a matter of weeks. Then he and his family escaped safely, moving from country to country in the Mediterranean to end up in France. Mother Mary was left behind and unfortunately killed by a Roman soldier. I actually crossed paths with a soulmate who shared that they were there in this parallel lifetime when Jesus survived the cross, which supported both of our past life memories. To make it clear, Jesus did die on the cross in the earth realm dimension we are in now. However, my soulmate and I experienced a parallel dimension where Jesus survived the crucifixion to eventually escape to safety. The last past life story I'm about to share brings back fond memories. This past life memory happened in early 2011 when I was becoming familiar with several of my Ascended Master teachers. One of my master teachers is Sanat Kumara, who is mentioned in Revelation in the Bible. He is also known as Ancient of Days. As Sanat was telepathically making himself known to me in January and February of 2011, I felt a deep connection to him. By the way, Sanat Kumara's divine complement partner is Ascended Master Lady Venus. On February 14, 2011, Valentine's Day, I received an email from a friend who channels the Ascended Masters and the Hierarchy of Light. She wrote that Sanat was bugging her during the night, asking her to give me this message to meditate on the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, then to connect with Sanat in meditation so he could tell me more about it. That morning, I Googled the Hanging Gardens of Babylon to discover it was one of the ancient wonders of the world, but no longer in existence. I learned what I could, and then I felt this urgency to meditate and connect with Sanat. During deep meditation, Sanat telepathically informed me he incarnated in that lifetime as Nebuchadnezzar II, and I was his queen. That time frame was between the year 605 BC and 562 BC. Ours was an arranged marriage. I was Princess Amitis from Medea. The dowry that went along with this arranged marriage was that my father, the king of Medea, was to gift the Median Empire to King Nebuchadnezzar II to expand the Babylonian Empire. Shortly after the marriage, I became homesick for the mountains where I came from. So to make me feel better and more at home, King Nebuchadnezzar II had the Hanging Gardens of Babylon built in my honor and for the Babylonian people to enjoy. I was so moved by the story that tears were pouring out of my eyes. I had a deep knowing that the information I received from my Ascended Master Guide was in fact true. This act of kindness was one of the sweetest, most memorable Valentine's Day gifts I ever received, and I will never forget that day and how much my Ascended Master teachers mean to me. So to recap, we are spirit beings having a human experience. We are here to learn life lessons in physical form to expand our souls for our ascension process, and also the collective. You could say this reality we live in is an illusion as a result of our choices we make. We decide to incarnate to learn the differences in the duality of dark and light, of fear and love in the earth realm, which I was told is one of the furthest planets away from the source of all creation. We are also learning about the threefold flame of love, power, and illumination. In order to truly understand love, you have to experience the lack or loss of love so that you can grow a heart of compassion. To understand power, you have to experience being powerless so you can learn the difference to use power for good versus evil. And for illusion or wisdom, you have to experience the lack of wisdom by staying asleep in the dark until you are ready to awaken to your divine essence and authentic self, if you choose to do so. I love offering this deep dive inner healing work for my clients who are ready to face their history. So if you are ready for your private regression healing session, please email me of your interest on my contact page on my website, dianehogan.com/contact. And I will get back to you as soon as possible. Namaste.